Hi guys, it's your boy Tito once again, Candyman, and once again I'm with my wife Bez.
Hi everyone.
And so welcome to episode 3 of Ken and Bez, the Bez of Ken. It's been a while since we did our last podcast. We've been busy doing life
Life.
together, and so we just wanted to do another episode with you guys. And this time around, we wanted to focus on career naman kasi we've had a lot
More
of we're more
mature.
mature.
We have more
We've had a lot of
experiences.
experiences
Yeah.
already. Ayan. And we just wanted to share some tips siguro that we wish someone would have told us as we were
Mm.
starting. Kasi as a little background lang, well, at least for me, my I come from a family of either business people or professionals. So professionals, yung mga lawyer, doctors, pharmacists, mga ganon.
Mm. Wait, are
And
you saying other people are not considered professionals? What do you mean by that?
professionals are those na may ano,
License.
yes, licensed
Okay.
professionals. Yeah, that's what I meant. So they don't have a lot of experiences working in the corporate industry, in the corporate
Yeah.
world. And as I was getting into my career, early part of my career, they were giving advice naman, 'di ba? And those were valuable advice and tips as well that they told me. Pero of course, iba kasi pag someone coming from an experience of being in the corporate world, iba din kasi iba din yung industry na yun. So yun. So maybe I would just share siguro some tips that I gathered that I wish someone would have told me. And
Right.
about you yourself, can you share a little background why you wish someone would have given you advice?
So a little background about myself is that I've been in the corporate world for X number of years, and my family, most of them have always worked in a company or an academic institution. So those are just like the two backgrounds that majority of us within my family are part of.
Okay, so let's get the ball rolling. Siguro I'll start with the importance of your boss,
Mm,
which can also be your mentor.
yeah.
Kasi when we're getting into job interviews, when we go to job interviews, the common perception is you go out there, you try to impress them, you try to win them over, diba? With your skill set, with how you answer questions,
Right.
with your background. But at the same time, this is also for you to get to know your potential boss or your potential mentor. Kasi, diba, that person is gonna guide you. You're still starting in your career, and he or she might give you like tips or directions on how you should go about your career. And if you lose out on that, no, it might be detrimental for your career. And naman on the flip side, if that boss turns out to be a great mentor, someone who cares about you, someone who's
Mm.
also had experiences, then it can also drive your career, no? Uh, and it could also coach you on how to become a better career person and a better person in general. Yeah.
Agreed, 100%. So, um, if you're going through an interview right now or will go through an interview, when you have that moment with the hiring manager,
Mhm.
who usually is going to be your boss, your direct manager, something that you should really look at is the life of the person. Look
Mhm.
at look at the life of the person, look at how they're asking you questions, think and reflect and observe how they are describing the job that they're doing,
Mhm.
and even how they're managing their job
Mm.
outside of work, meaning do they think about it on the weekends, do they have time to go on a vacation.
Right.
And I think it's really important that your direct manager inspires you to be that person, because ultimately, right, the natural progression is if you get a promotion, it's usually the job of your boss,
Mm.
right? So it has to be something that excites you.
Mm.
That next role, hopefully you get promoted really soon, is that something that excites you, something that inspires you, and that you look at the direct manager's job and be like, and life, and be like, oh, I want to be that too. I
Yeah.
want to handle things like that.
And
Then you will find out that this is a good job for
Yeah, and
you.
speaking of inspiration, no, you also look at if your boss is still inspired with the job that he
Yeah.
or she has. Because there can be great people, but they're probably at that stage where they're already bored with their career, or
Mm,
they're just doing it for the money. No, so is that person still inspired? Is that person still willing to learn? Does he still have that growth mindset, so
right.
that you can also be in that growth mindset? No, so yeah, and one thing that you can ask them to know if they're still inspired is by asking them, what do you love most about your job? Something that you can ask during an interview, because that will really reflect on where they are at. They could say something about the values of the company, so
Mm,
you know that that person, or he or she is very passionate about the company that we're in. So I'm gonna be in a good fit or in a good culture. But if that person will just maybe answer, or
the generic way.
the salary or something, or a very generic answer, right? So you know that maybe he's in there just
Make a
to
living, and
yeah,
there's
to make a
nothing wrong
living,
with it, but you just want to be mindful about who your
right?
manager will be, because they have the most impact on your career, especially as you start out your journey in that company,
Yeah,
right?
siguro I'll tell a story of a great manager that I used to
Mm,
have. I won't mention names na lang kasi we didn't ask permission that they'll be in the podcast now. But siguro one great boss that I had was someone who really took time to have one-on-one sessions with me on a regular basis. Meaning, hindi lang siya during performance evaluation, but
right.
like I think we had Monday schedules, and then we talked about, okay, what are the tasks this week, but at the same time we also talked about, so where do you think you are in your current job, where do you want to go, how can I
Mm,
help you, or how can I support you do that job. So someone who's still passionate, and that really showed me that uh, she cared for me during
right.
that time.
Right. And of course, you won't know that at your interview, right?
Mm,
But you can ask,
mm,
are we going to have regular one on ones? And what does that look like? How are your one on ones with your current employees or your current team
right.
looking? Or what is the schedule? So,
Yeah.
those are like quick things. And I think that's really, really important,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So, and still speaking of boss, while you're in it, something that you should know is that you have to make your boss look good. Right?
Mm,
I think that's really important because I mentioned earlier that your boss will have the most impact on your career. They can either open the doors up for you for other opportunities, or they can be the bottleneck to all the other
right.
opportunities that you have. So one thing that you want to make sure you do is that you make your boss look good. And how do you do that? You ask what is the most important objectives, what are the most important results that your boss needs to have by, I don't know, end of the year or mid-year, kung ano man yung usual cycle nyo ng ROIs. But you have to ask all that questions and then use that and see how it can pattern or lead up to your own objectives and or your own goals, right? So that it becomes easier for you as well to make your boss look good and you're making yourself look good as well.
Right. How
Yeah.
about you? What's your tip for
So I'm
that?
gonna bring up my phone now. So I know I have my notes here, right? Um, so for me, another tip that you should be looking at is relationships, right? So yes, your boss is one of it, or a mentor, as you said
Mm,
earlier. Another would be just relationships within the company that you're working in. You need to build good relationships with people, and also a reminder that you are in the corporate world. So some of the people you meet there don't necessarily end up as your friends, especially if you're coming from college and then into the workforce. Yes, some of them will be your lifelong friends. A majority will not be, and that's a reality that you need to accept and embrace as early as now. But when we talk about relationships, um, it's also being able to manage not only upwards, so that can be your manager's managers, your other stakeholders, but also manage down, even if you don't have people under you. So when you say manage down, if you're, let's say, a senior specialist and you have junior specialists in the team, even if they're not reporting to you, you need to be able to, um, yeah, you should be able to manage them as
manage them
well.
by knowing what motivates them, how they can deliver their deliverables in time,
Yep.
mga ganun.
And most especially, you need to be able to manage within your level as well. So all of that is really important. There's a saying that it's not what you do, but it's who you know, and that's really part of building relationships with people. Yeah.
Yeah, I heard that. I heard the term managing up from one of our sales directors in a
Mm.
previous company that I had. Na we had she had this meeting with our CEO, and she had to get information from me, and she asked me valuable information on how she can manage her boss naman. So that was the first
Mm.
time, hindi lang pala that your boss manages you. You should also be able to
Mm.
manage your boss on how to manage their expectations,
Right.
what you can deliver and how you'll be able to deliver them, no? And also parang manage it also na yung to not overwork you as well, na set
Draw up boundaries.
boundaries, o
Yeah.
na weekends hindi ako pwede, mga ganun.
Yeah.
That's managing up then.
Right. Okay. What about you? What's your next tip for them?
My next tip would be about the importance of your company or your position more than your salary at the start, at the onset. This isn't applicable to those who already have families, but siguro if you're a fresh graduate, no, I think this is a lesson that I learned the hard way. Where in when I graduated, when I was a fresh grad, no, syempre excited ka, magkakasweldo ka na, 'di ba? Magkakaroon ka na ng trabaho, mako-compare mo rin yung sarili mo towards your peers who will have these amount of salary na mataas, 'di ba? So mako-compare mo rin, and of course you might have responsibilities then towards your family or whatever, but long term wise, it's very important to be in a great company for your resume in the future should you want to move,
Mm.
or the career or the job position that you will have, or kung anong department man yan. That's very important. And the salary, the benefits, it will come as you get better, as you move ranks. So yun, siguro for entry levels especially, you might not get the salary that you want right away, and that it's okay, no?
Mm.
If that company will provide you valuable insights, can provide you career growth, go for that company. Kasi ako ito specific to sa akin, I've rejected companies when I was young because maliit yung salary na ino-offer. Pero looking back, I should have taken those opportunities kasi they were from big companies, and I had peers na went into those companies na maliit din yung sahod nila, pero eventually they they grew, no, in that company yun.
Yeah, it's always being in that growth mindset. I
Yes.
think that's most important
Mm,
as you start your career.
right.
Right. Good one.
What about you?
My next advice or tip, not advice, is to be able to communicate well, right? Um, and this is around three things. The first one is for you to ask questions
Mm,
and not be afraid. Being in a Asian background, being specifically in a Filipino background, we are expected to know everything and be perfect at everything and have solutions to everything. But that is not how the world works anymore. How the world works now in the corporate world is that the more questions you ask, the better you get at something. And that should be it, right?
mm,
That should really be
mm,
it. So don't be afraid to ask questions. And even if your mind is saying, like, that is such a beginner question, that is fine and good because, again, we are in a growth mindset. It's just that you make sure that when you ask those questions, you're able to apply it and you fail from it, you learn something from it as well. And then don't apply it again,
mm,
right? So it's really not being afraid to ask questions. The second one is listening. So when people this is something I noticed is that when people talk about communication, they would always think of how the person is speaking or more of the talking part. When in reality, communication's biggest, um, I don't know, biggest factors
mm,
would be listening
yeah.
and asking questions, like what I said earlier. So learn to develop that mindful listening. So when I talk about mindful listening, it means you're hearing what the person is saying and hearing what the person is not saying, which I think is really important.
Yeah, we call that active listening, wherein
Yes.
you're an active participant
Yeah.
in the hearing. You're you're not just hearing words, or you're not just listening to how you can respond, but you're um,
Picking up
actively and
cues.
being intentional that I need to understand what this person is
Yeah,
saying.
exactly.
Yeah, and you brought up an interesting point about asking questions, because I read from somewhere that one reason why a lot of millennials fail, so I hope the Gen Z people won't be this way, when they go to their superior about a problem, they already tried to figure that problem out on their own. And when the manager or the superior helps with the solution, we tend to already say, I've tried that already, but it didn't work because this, and that. So parang you're already restricting the solution because you've tried it on your own and you failed, and you're telling them, this is the reason why it failed, because like this, and that. Instead of brainstorming with the superior, how at the onset of the problem before it grows larger, na what this is the problem, it's still starting, how do you think we can manage it?
Yeah, and then still bring your solutions, right? I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. What I could add to what you said is that instead of telling your manager that I did that solution, it didn't work, you can also come from I did that solution, it didn't work, and here are the things I learned. What do you think we can do next, right? Instead of thinking of a whole new, I don't know, solution to the problem, unless it's really needed.
Yeah. And just to add to communications now, since you brought it up, one thing that I also learned is that you communicate in the style of the person that you're communicating to.
Yeah,
Because
100%.
just because you communicate in a certain way, it doesn't mean that the person that you're talking understands it in that way. So, for example, you might come up with stats, data, all these graphs,
Yeah.
but that person doesn't understand graphs, no? So it wouldn't make sense. So that's the art of storytelling as well.
Right. That
How
was
do
my
you,
third point.
yeah, okay, go on with your third point na lang.
No, go ahead. I mean, yeah, and that is part of communication. You
Mm.
need to be able to learn how to tell a story, and not just like throw facts at people, and not just come up with a statement. But that can be a good
Yeah.
entry point or like
Yeah.
an introduction. But you need to be able to come up with a story that is compelling, that would get people to either work on something,
Right.
or be influenced towards your side,
Yeah.
right? So there.
Yeah, kasi I read from somewhere that you don't convince people through logic.
Yeah.
You convince them through their heart,
Emotions.
through their emotions. So
Yeah.
that's the art of storytelling. Our next tip is to have a growth mindset or a beginner's mindset. What does that mean? Siguro, when you graduated college or when you were in college, uh, parang especially coming from a senior, you probably think that, oh, I'm at the top of my game. I already know a lot of things. I'm an officer for this organization, this and that. But as you come into the corporate world, you'd realize that there are still so many things that you wouldn't know, you don't know. So to just have that beginner's mindset. And if you do end up with a great career, so hopefully praying for you that you'd end up in a great career, um, is to not be complacent. So to have that growth mindset na even if I'm in this career, this is the things that I do to still actively try to learn. What do you mean by that? Get yourself into upskilling courses. Try to read up on industry standards or
Right.
industry trends. Network from peers. What lessons did they learn that you can pick up from? Yung mga ganun.
Yeah, you should continue to develop yourself because the only thing that is constant is change, and so you need to kind of adapt to the changes that's happening to you.
Right.
Right. Okay. So my last tip would be um, perception, right?
Mm.
How do you manage perception? Or I like to call
That's a good one.
optics. Optics. You want to look at optics. What do I mean by this? It's like in building your own brand at work. Okay, and you need to do that, and you need to build a good brand. What does that look like? So if you're constantly late, people would brand you as somebody who's a latecomer. And so that becomes the word of mouth, and people talk about, oh, let's just say Ken, you have to tell him 5 minutes earlier kasi laging late yan. So that becomes an optic of who you are at work. Or it can be the opposite. You're somebody who's always on time, somebody who's early, and that is a good thing,
Mm.
right? You build that optics around you.
Mhm.
Because when you have a good brand or at work, you should become the person who would always advocate for yourself at work. So when you do something good, and you want to share it to the world, use your storytelling skills to be able to tell that to your manager by managing up, right? And sharing what you're doing, because people won't know what you're doing unless you start telling it to them. And this is a very uncomfortable concept in the Asian market or in the Asian corporate world, especially in the Philippines, because people would think, oh, you're bragging.
Or
But
your pabibo, diba?
or
Mga
your
ganun.
pabibo. But for you to play this game well and make sure that you become successful, you do need to have that a little bit factor of bragging, a little bit of pabibo, because, like I said, nobody will advocate for you more than you would advocate for yourself. But you just don't want to go out there and just be like, okay, this is what I did. Yay, congratulations to me. Of course not. You want to do it in a very tactful manner. So that's where storytelling comes in. And that's also where you're able to manage up, manage down, and manage the people around you. So all the tips that we have shared with you is actually interconnected to one another. And it does not mean that you need to like do all of it at the same time. Actually, no.
Mm.
You're gonna start somewhere. You start with one tip, you do it really, really well, continue to do it, and then add on to another skill, and so on and so on
Yeah.
and so on, right? Because all of it, if you want to be successful and you feel that you are called to be in a corporate setting or in a company, then yeah,
I
things
love
will work
I
for
love
you.
what you said about you advocating for
Mm,
yourself kasi it ties back to my first tip, which is you should have a great mentor or a great boss, because that was a big mistake that I had in early in my career,
mm,
because um, I initially thought that, your boss or your manager
mm,
should be your biggest advocate. Kasi he or she is the one who has the power to promote you. That is what I thought. And when I had great mentors and
mm,
great managers, great bosses, that was the case. They really helped build me up to my career. But I was also, we've also had experiences na siguro sabihin na natin not as great as the other boss that I had. Um, they would not advocate for you. They take all the credit for themselves.
for you.
Oh, they take the credit of the work that I did. No, and that's also part of the optics. That's also something that they did well. Na they made themselves look good. So how do I do that? How do I manage up using that? Like what Beth said, it should still be in a tactful manner. Hindi mo rin siya sisiraan sa ibang tao kasi again, you should make your boss look good. Hindi mo rin siya sasabihin, hindi ako lang may gawa niyan.
They have the
But
most power pa rin.
yeah, but still casually dropped it in conversations with other managers, other bosses, to the other
Mm,
departments na, oh yeah, uh, this is what I did for that project, or volunteer na ikaw mag-present ng mga ganito ganyan. So that's how you can advocate for yourself, or through LinkedIn, mga things that you could post na, oh, this is I'm so happy that we did this project. Yun, you should be the biggest advocate for yourself.
exactly.
So I hope you learn from us. If you have questions about this, you can ask us. We'll try to answer, or maybe other people can answer those questions for you, or baka you have reactions to what we said. No, maybe you have another point of view. Let us know. If you're working like us, maybe you have other tips as well that you can share. So yeah, leave them in the comment
Yeah.
section, and don't forget to like and subscribe to this channel.